And I still can't figure out how to do this. So finally I asked to everything, nothing, whatever you want to call it. I said, how can I heal this? Instantly, they put me in, or it, whatever. I was put in a theater. It's completely empty, no one in the seats except me, and I'm in the very middle seat in the front row. And I'm like, okay. And it's all dark. And I'm like, okay. And then the director comes out on stage. And the director is me. And I'm like, And then I look back and I see that the producer back up in the booth, hey, that's me too. And then next to me, there's another person, the writer who wrote this whole play. And that's me too. And then I look up, and there on the stage is the actor, and that's me too. I'm everything in this play, movie, whatever you want to call it.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Ching, and I have a great, fantastic friend of the podcast and a dear friend of mine. I want to welcome back Lee to the podcast. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. For all the new people in the channel, I just want to explore a little bit about you and bring them up to speed to how we got here today.
Okay. I think the reason that you wanted me to be here is because I have what a lot of people think is an amazing story. I consider it's made up of many death-like experiences, which I consider to be a timeline that, with just little events along the way. I don't consider it to be different experiences. It's like one experience that's been lasting for 40 years. And it starts with the near-death experience that I had when I was 21, and my second son, was just newborn. And I don't fault anybody who was involved with it at all. It was a very interesting birth because my son kept twisting around in my stomach doing somersaults. And in order to make sure that he was the right direction and there were no cords around him, they had to physically reach up inside of me and turn him around many times. And this is beyond painful. And it was so painful that my fingernails were digging into the wall behind me as I tried to climb out of it. So I don't blame them at all. It was a very difficult, stressful situation. But after he did make it into the world, and he made it in just fine, no cords or anything, no cords wrapped around his neck or anything. Then when he made it into the world, about just a couple days later, I came down with a very massive infection. And I had a fever of 111 Fahrenheit, which is 44 degrees Celsius. And I was in the hospital and I didn't move. I mean, when you're that sick, you don't have a lot of energy, you don't move much. And so I was just laying on the hospital bed, and then I sat up. There's no pain, there's no feeling, there's no emotion, there's nothing. I just sat up very peacefully. And I turned around and looked back and saw my body still on the bed. Again, no emotions, no thoughts, just, there's my body. And then I came out of my body and floated into a dark tunnel. This is pitch black. There is nothing. You can see nothing. You can perceive nothing. You can't, it's beyond any blackness that you can imagine here on Earth. But it felt completely blissful, so supportive, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving, warm, safe. It was beautiful. And I was like, if this is whatever this is happening, and I have no idea what's happening, this is where I want to be right now. And I floated through this tunnel I perceived as a tunnel. And I got to where I perceived something like a widening or maybe a room or something. I still can't see anything. It's still pitch black. But it still has the same feel to it. And I'm okay with this. That's fine. And then a voice spoke to me. And I perceived it as male, though I don't know. But it was the most soft, loving, non judgmental voice I can imagine. And he asked, "Do you want to come now?" I instantly knew what was being asked of me. And it it frightened me kind of, but it actually put me into a slight panic. And I said, "I can't. I've got 2 children to raise." And I've perceived a nod of the head, no judgment, nothing at all, just, yep, okay, that's your choice. And I went back into the tunnel and flipped right back into my body. The fever broke, and I was out of the hospital the next day. But I knew that I had made that choice, which was very empowering. I knew I had a purpose in being here. I knew I had a reason to be here and something to do while I was here. And so that was the first part of it. And so then I didn't know what this was. I'd been raised in a very strict Catholic family, and I knew this is before technology. This is before cell phones. We had telephones, but we didn't have the internet, none of that. There was no way for me to figure out what this event was or what had happened to me. And I thought with my Catholic upbringing, which I hadn't followed since I was 13, but it was the only, quote, foundation I had. And I knew that if I told anybody, they'd think I was crazy or they'd think I was going to hell. And maybe I was going to hell. I didn't know. But I knew I didn't want anybody to know what had happened to me. So I pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down to the point where I didn't even remember it for about the next 20 years. Actually, a little bit longer than that. But it was still the empowerment remained, even if I was not remembering the event. And so I moved on from there. And then, like I said, about 40 years later, I started having more of these. And I still didn't have a term for it. I didn't know it was called a near-death experience. I just life and weird things are happening. And so I got to the point where I had another, what I will call near-death experience, where I actually was somewhere else. And this happened in 2019, in September of 2019. I got really, really, really sick. The timing on that is kind of crucial because of what they think it may have been. But anyway, so I got really, really sick, had a fever, another high fever for about 3 days, flat on the bed, not able to move well enough to actually go and like get to a doctor or anything, and thinking that if I did, they'd probably say it's a virus, go home and get better. Okay, fine. Why should I even bother? So I was just laying there, and I ended up being somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know how I got there, but I was somewhere, and it was it was warm. It was safe. It was loving. It was very indistinct. There was no actual shapes that I could see. It was kind of a brown, orange, pink kind of color. Um, but there was no fear again. And it was just lovely. And there were lots of beings here. I don't know who they were. I don't know how many of them there were. I couldn't see. But they were chanting to me over and over, "You have done what you came here to do." And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What? Wait a minute. And at that moment, boom, back in my body, leaving me thinking, if I've done what I came here to do, why am I still here? And then I started into the real gist of my spiritual awakening and looking at what spirituality meant and what is all this? What's happening to me? And I thought, if I'm going to leave pretty soon, maybe I should like get all my loose ends tied up and make it as easy as possible for whoever is here after me. So I started, trying to do that. And at the same time, I thought, if I'm going to go, maybe I ought to learn how to do this as well as possible. So I started studying everything Ram Dass put out, everything. He became a very close teacher for me, even though I never physically met him. And one day I'm sitting on the couch, and because I can't move, I'm very, very weak still. That's how come I could do all this research, because I'm not moving. And all of a sudden, this enormous, I mean, I can't even describe the bliss that came over me. There's just this wonderful feeling of complete bliss. Everything is perfect. You're completely safe. You're completely loved. You are part of something so much bigger, and you are part of oneness and union. But I cannot explain how wonderful that felt. And it lasted for about 3 days. And I was just sitting there enjoying it. I want to do this forever. And then it started to fade, and I'm like, no, 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 I want this. How can I get this? How can I keep this? And so I'm searching for ways to get back to it. And I'm going through again Ram Dass at this time. And that year, at at the end of the year, Ram Dass was getting really, really sick physically. I mean, he'd had the stroke, but it was obvious he wasn't going to be around too much longer. But I'm still poring over everything that he had. And then on the 23rd of December, he left form. On the 25th of December, I'm sitting on that same couch, and I'm looking out my doorway, which goes, I can see out to the carport. And beyond the carport, there's just trees, just forest. And so I'm just looking out there, because what else have I got to do when I'm not reading and I'm resting my eyes? And suddenly someone walks by in this forest. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Wait a minute. There's not a path there. There's not a road there. There's nothing there. And I looked again, and here is this person in a white robe, and he's got a kind of shaggy beard and kind of scraggly hair. And he kind of looks over me, and he gives me this kind of it's not quite a smile, but it's kind of a, yeah. And I'm like, Ram Dass, you're visiting me? And then he moved on and left, and I thought, I've got to go and see the spot where he was. So I mustered whatever energy I could and managed to make it out there. And in the spot where he had been, on the ground, in December, which is not fruiting season, this is like way down time for the trees, under the tree where he had been, in the shape of a diamond, were 4 perfectly ripe, perfectly round, perfectly, I mean, they were unblemished guavas. He'd left me a gift. And I knew why he had. I knew that because of what I had been studying, that he understood, and he wanted us to understand. He wanted me to understand that there is no death, that what had happened to him was he didn't leave. He couldn't leave. None of us can leave. We can transform, we can change forms, but we're all energy. We can't die. We can't leave. We can only join more, well, not join because we're joined anyway, but we can become more clear in being everywhere all at once. And I knew that he wanted us to celebrate his freedom from form, that he was now part of the union, the whole, the oneness, whatever you want to call it, and that he was everywhere. And because I wasn't grieving for him, because I knew that he wanted us to celebrate with him, he visited me. And so we move on from that, and I start getting a little bit stronger. And I'm thinking about, okay, if I'm still here, what should I do with my life? And I thought, well, what I can do is I can use what I have and the tools that I currently have to try and guide other people to make whatever strides they can toward being and experiencing what I have. So I started doing this, and I didn't quite know what to do or how to do it, but I was working on it, and I was helping people. But I knew that there was more, that I hadn't done something, that I needed to do something. And I realized it was my I just lost the word, my relationship with my mother. My mother, I had a very, very tough upbringing. She had 6 kids in 7.5 years, starting when she was 16. She was overwhelmed. She was frustrated. She was angry. And she took it out on us. And so I didn't have a good relationship with her. Well, just about 15 years prior to this time when I'm thinking about this relationship with her, and I think I've dealt with it numerous times, and I think I've got it all healed, but apparently I don't. And so that 15 years prior to that, she ended up, she chose to murder my former sister-in-law and spent the last 15 years of her life in prison. So I had no contact with her. There's no way for me to heal anything by going to visit her, because I'm not going to. I'm 3,500 miles away from her for a reason. And I thought, well, I don't know how to heal this. I don't know what to do. And so I had a friend who said, I was in a similar situation, and I learned how to see my parents as loving me enough to give me the foundation to be who I am now. And I thought, that's wonderful for you, but that's not me. So I went on a little bit longer, and I still can't figure out how to do this. So finally I asked to everything, nothing, whatever you want to call it. I said, how can I heal this? Instantly, they put me in, or it, whatever. I was put in a theater. It's completely empty. No one in the seats except me. And I'm in the very middle seat in the front row. And I'm like, okay. And it's all dark. And I'm like, okay. And then the director comes out on stage. And the director is me. And I'm like, And then I look back and I see that the producer back up in the booth, hey, that's me too. And then next to me, there's another person, the writer who wrote this whole play. And that's me too. And then I look up, and there on the stage is the actor, and that's me too. I'm everything in this play, movie, whatever you want to call it. And so this play goes on, and I'm seeing that everyone else around me, including my mother, is an actor who chose to take this role for my benefit. And that meant, that showed to me that she loved me enough to go from the ultimate bliss that is beyond this life in form, this experience in form, to what she did to me. She loved me that much so that I would be able to have the foundation, so that I could be the best helper, guide to the people I helped, and that I could be the one to heal my life, her life, all of the generations past. And I was like, wow. Something lifted off of me and I became very joyful. But the crux of that was also, if I'm the writer of this script, I can change it at any time and I can make it be what I want to be. I don't have to be stuck in what I thought the script was. I can move on from it. And that was part of the bliss that came afterward. But that's not the end of it. About a few months later, it was December of that year, which was 2020. I'm just going along and I'm being kind of blissful and happy. And, the only person that had any contact, and I won't call it contact, but the only person that the institution where my mother was being was my brother, whose former wife is the one that she killed. And he was not at all involved, but he was the only contact they had for anything that should happen with her. Okay, fine. My brother and I had a relationship. I mean, we were talking and doing things, talking. He's, thousands of miles away from me, so we're not like doing anything together, but we're talking and communicating. Okay, fine. And so I've been talking to him. We don't talk about too much of what's going on. I mean, we never mention her at all. Okay. Come along mid-December, for no apparent reason, I wake up one day and I'm just so jittery and I'm just so anxious and it's so overwhelming. It's like, and I have no idea what's going on. And I'm trying every method I can. Doesn't touch it. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I don't know what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm not even functional. How can I? That went on for 3 days. And on the third day, I woke up in freedom and bliss. It was everything I'd had in all of the NDEs, but with a freedom I'd never known. And I thought, oh, wow, this is fantastic. A little bit later that day, my brother calls and he tells me, our mother died this morning. And I'm going, oh. And I told him what I had been going through. And I realized I had shared her experience. Now, I still don't have a term for this. I don't know it's called a shared death experience. But I shared her experience of leaving this form. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And I was then able to go on and do the rest of the healing, which was for her, for the rest of the family, for others in the line back, the ancestral history. I was able to heal all of that. And that's most of what I've learned, but there's one more experience that's beyond that. So now I've got me fixed, I've got her fixed, I've got everybody fixed. Well, not fixed, but I've healed what I can. And I'm now much better at being the guide that I need to be, or I can be. And so just in the last, almost a year ago now, my people, the wisdom keepers, my whatever you want to call them, the guides, they call themselves the wisdom keepers. And they've been coming to me for some time. They talk to me. I do automatic writing. They come through me that way. And I know they're there. But there came a sense that, hey, there's something else we want you to do. And we want you to get this out to the world. Okay, what is it? Oh, we'd like you to go through and heal people's notions of what this thing they call death is. And I'm like, you want me to do what? But okay, I'm up for it. You tell me what I need to do. And so they take me through a process where I lighten my energy. Now, I know, son, that you know how to do this, but I'm going to tell the people out there. I lightened my energy field. I made it as light as possible. And that does diet, inner work, so much inner work, more inner work. Um, and it goes through a process where you're just really lightening everything about you, every aspect of you. So I'm lightening and lightening and lightening and lightening. And they've told me kind of, they haven't told me exactly how it's going to work, but I know pretty well. And so the day comes that I have chosen and that I will be in the space where I can do this. Okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm lightening and I'm releasing my energy and I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And there's a moment in it when something happens. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not leaving. What's happening? I must have done something wrong. And they're like, no, you're okay. Well, when you get to the point where you are ready to join that absolute freedom, and so you get to the point where you're releasing your energy into complete freedom, and you want to go, and you know what you're going to feel on the other side, and then it's taken away from you. It's beyond heartbreaking. You mean I have to stay? You mean I can't go now? You did all that and now I can't, huh? And I went to almost depression, but not quite. And I kept asking them, why? And they said, because you need to, there are things you need to do. And I'm like, what do I need to do? And so the next day, I'm sitting there wallowing in my self-pity, which you shouldn't do. Not the best thing in the world, but I'm doing it because I don't know what else to do. And on my back doorstep appears this young lady. And she is, I mean, she's got blood on certain parts of her body, her legs and such, and her arms. And she's very, very nervous. She's like, I don't want anybody to see me. I don't want anybody to know I'm here. Can I call you my aunt using your phone? And I'm like, I guess so. So she tries to call her aunt doesn't answer. And in fact, blocks the calls. And I'm like, well, this is really weird. And so I brought her into the house. She told me her story of massive amounts of abuse. Now she's over 18, but she's still getting massive amounts of abuse at home and doesn't feel like she can leave because she has to protect other people. And she just can't take it anymore. It's related to all kinds of nasty things and underworld stuff, and she just can't take it anymore. And she's telling me all this. And I never got her even name, but I can tell that she's a very physically beautiful person, and that inside of her is this massively wonderful person who is in a whole lot of stress. So I just let her talk, and I asked questions, let her get it out. And then she finally made the decision. I asked her, well, what do you want to do with this? And she says, I guess I have to go to the police because I need to be safe. So I drove her up there and I dropped her off. And when I came back, I realized that's it. I have to help people. I'm here to help people. There are people who need me, need my guidance, and that's why I didn't get to go. And they added on later. And by the way, we'd really like you to let people know that death does not need to have to be associated with even pain or suffering. Leaving form can be, and it's our natural state to be pain free, stress free, and to be blissful. And I'm like, okay, how would you like me to do that one? Just tell them. Just tell them. Just put it out there for them. And that is where I see my timeline of these events ending, but a new way of me being in the world starting.
Wow. And so does that when it presents itself, looking at this realization, did they give you tools to help people do transform? Like, are they giving you guidance on what you would do for someone when they're ready for that type of like awareness as they come to you for help?
I have what I call a tool belt. Like I've mentioned, people will ask me, what methods do you use? Well, I have lots and lots and lots of tools. Um, and whenever, in fact, right now, they are coming through me. I don't plan anything that I say. I don't script it. It just comes out. And what flows out is whatever needs to flow out. But they also helped me to gain this very large tool belt so that whenever somebody comes to me, and people come to me all the time, but whatever they have in their, whatever is best suited to help them or to guide them in their particular situation, the right tool will come out at the right time. And I don't plan that. It just happens.
Well, so could you give us an example? Like, say someone's a really emotionally like very disheartened. They're feeling very empty. They'll give you a specific sort of practice that'll be more custom to that individual, or is there
Yeah.
sort of like a protocol that you would use that would be more universal?
Well, for instance, I can't really do too much with my clients because I want them to have their privacy. But it might be someone who is very distraught over, say, um, the loss of a spouse, the sudden loss of a spouse that
Hmm.
is was just devastating for this person.
Hmm.
And as we're going through the steps and working toward getting this person free from their grief and such, and don't get me wrong, if you're grieving, grieve, do what you need to. But grief, as you get through it, as you move through it, eventually people will see that grief is generally that person trying to hold on to the past, trying want to make the past come back.
Mm.
Um, Nothing against grieving. I've been there. I've done it. Okay. But as I'm working through something like that with a person, we might get to the point where they're like, well, I just I could do this, but I don't know if I want to. I don't know if it's the best thing to do. And so I might pull out a tool like what I call the two chairs, which is like you have you sitting in two chairs. This is the part of you that says, yes, do that. And this is the part of you that says, no, don't do that. And sometimes they'll put names on it like, oh, no is the ego and yes is the inner self or whatever, and they can if they want to. Um, but you have these two chairs, no and yes. and you have them talk to each other. Okay, now you, the person who is moderating this debate, ask the questions, and you ask it to both sides. If I do this, what would happen if I do this? And then yes will say you'll be joyful, and then no will say whatever no says, because no is like, you can't do that, it's not safe, you're gonna blah 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 blah. And I say, okay, now you, the moderator, you continue having this debate, and you figure out which one you want to do. And in most cases, they will eventually get to the point where they say, that's just my ego talking, trying to keep me safe. And this is where I really want to go. And they make their choice. So that's a tool. There are lots and lots and lots of tools out there. And some people can use a method of tools, like they might use yoga, or they might use, whatever. Wonderful, fantastic. If it works for you, great. I don't tell people what they should do. I give them the tools they need so that they can make the choices as to what they're going to do.
Very powerful. So let's just say someone had some type of, like, I don't know, physical sickness. What would be a tool that you would use for, say, cancer or something like that?
Well, the first thing I do, and I've had this actually happen, cancer is always a message to the person about what they haven't dealt with, or haven't completely dealt with, something that's holding on to them. For instance, they might have something like pancreatic cancer, which tends to be, the pancreas is over joy of life. And so this person is feeling uncomfortable with their position in life based, about joy of life. For instance, we'll just take somebody everybody knows, Steve Jobs, who died of pancreatic cancer. There's a very good possibility that he knew that his joy of life, his the way that he was living in his life, with, he could have as much opulence as he wanted, and he had all of this privilege. But he knew also that in some way or fashion that he had that because other people suffered so that he could gain that. And I don't know that for sure. I don't know that's what happened with Steve Jobs. I'm just making an example of it. But cancer tends to be something that you're not comfortable with. Maybe you're not comfortable, like I haven't had cancer, and I'm not gonna, I hope I never do, but I was not comfortable with my early years. And so maybe I would have had a cancer that was related to not being able to let go of those. So what I would tell somebody, and I have told somebody, if they're having a cancer, I'll do the research on it so I know what they're dealing with. And a good place to start on that, if they don't have if they're not connected to their inner self enough to be able to have that conversation with themselves, a good place to find a starting point is the work of Louise Hay, who is, at least you can say, oh, she's correlating this with this. Like, she's correlating pancreatic cancer with something with the joy of life, something like that. And from there, almost invariably, when I say, well, it seems like this might be connected to what? It might be connected to your feelings of nurturing or not being nurtured when you were a kid. Oh yeah, that's a big thing in my life. Well, okay, there we go. So I don't Nobody can heal another person. You know this. Nobody can heal another person's energy field. That person can heal their own field. And healing comes from within, it doesn't come from without. If you think it's going to work on the inside, maybe it will. If you've dealt with whatever it is that the message is trying to give you, that your body is trying to give you, of what you need to do. And so I don't necessarily um, do what would, I guess, would be termed healing. I do guidance, and I allow them the space to be able to heal themselves if that's what they wish to do.
Wow. So I've got a question. What's the wisdom keepers saying about the rest of this year? What they give any sort of like indication what they perceive year's going to kind of be like in a rollout?
Yes, basically what they tell me is this year and next year are the big transformation years, the transformation and change. This is when all of the structures that no longer serve us are going to go away, and we're going to make new ones, especially the younger generations. I love the younger generations because they are the ones who are changing the world. And working with them really lights up my life. But that's what the wisdom keepers are saying is, you know, get through these years. It's not going to be necessarily pleasant, but everything is in place. Whether you use astrology, whether you use the old Mayan texts, whether you use in any indigenous wisdoms, the next 2 years are the years we all have to get through. These are the years that we, all of us, everyone who's here on this earth right now, chose to be here at this time because we wanted to experience this change and be part of this change and this movement to go from the old that doesn't serve the people, that doesn't support all of the people, to a new way that does, to a way of peace, to a way of, not necessarily everybody belonging, but what they see coming is that each of us will understand the power that each of us has, that each of us has, is the divine within us, and that we equally have, every one of us has this, so that when I see you, I respect that you're part of the divine. When you see me, you respect that I'm part of the divine. There is no giving away of our power to structures. We make our own choices. We live in freedom because we know that we have our own power, that no one can take from us if we don't give it to them. And that's one of the huge changes that's going on right now is we are realizing we have this power. We have this divine energy inside of us, that we are this divine energy. And therefore, as we're moving forward into this new realm where everyone, just imagine when everyone respects each other on that way, when everyone has everything that they need, there's no reason to have any of these, all of this nonsense that's going on around us right now.
So do you think are they clearer on like there's a transformation? I fundamentally believe that um, disorder, world war, financial collapse. Do they give you any sort of insight into that?
Yeah, it's all going to happen. They've changed it a little bit. At one point in time, they were saying there was going to be an enormous tsunami that covered the entire world. That was apparently something that was caused by humans, by not by humans like you and me who are living on the surface, but by the underworld. Uh, and the underworld is made up of humans who are doing all sorts of interesting things. Anyway, they apparently had some mechanism by which they were going to make this tsunami happen and kill millions and millions of people and make just, I mean, huge devastation. However, the interstellar beings had a handle on it, and they didn't want that to happen. They want to see us move through this. They want to see us create this new world. And so they took out the method by which this was supposed to happen. And that's not going to happen now. So they're kind of leery about saying this is going to happen anymore, because when they do, it means there's a 90% chance, but there's still that like 10% chance that something could change. And so they're not actually saying, you know, they're not giving predictions, but they are seeing, they're giving, I get pictures of it all the time, and it keeps me going. It keeps me being blissful and being able to not worry about what's going on out there, because I can see the bigger picture of what's coming afterwards. And that's one of their big messages, is see that bigger picture. And whenever any of us is feeling that stress of everything, I mean, whatever, you know, if you see the bigger picture, if you know it's going to be okay, if you know humanity is going to be okay, you can get through this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Would you would you say what would be something that we could share with the audience? Some type of like, I don't know, how you would like create. How about someone just like getting a sense of relaxation and just sort of like, centering their body? Do you have any sort of recommendations on tools that they could use? I mean, quite frankly, the second I mentioned that, you start emanating this energy, and I'm feeling very relaxed right now. And anyone on the channel will know, or OGs, that the sort of power that Lee's harnessing, just that frequency. So, is there anything that someone could use that you could recommend in a tool to help them sort of just become more in tune with their day, relaxation, or something like that?
Well, for those who are just starting, and I believe a lot of the people on your channel are probably well past this, but I'm going to get it out there anyway. The easiest way to feel even a moment of bliss is through the breath. You breathe in and breathe in deeply, hold it for a second, and let it out slowly. Just let it out slowly. And feel this stress and the tension go away from you. And in that, you will feel just a moment of bliss. And you can do this in the grocery store. You can do this wherever you happen to be. You have to breathe anyway. Make it work for you. But there's also other things you can do. They've given me several mantras recently. One of these is, and you can say this at night, you can say this in the morning, whatever. Infinite bliss here on earth. Infinite bliss in leaving form. Infinite bliss in oneness.
Ooh. Amen to that. Whoa. Well, they're giving you these immediate satisfaction type tools. Woo! Wow.
They do. They like, we have a very ADHD society right now, and people are not wanting to sit down for long periods of time in meditation, which is why they keep giving me all of this. It's wonderful that you have spent 30 years doing this and working on this and meditating. Who only knows how many untold hours? That's fantastic. Most of today's younger generation is like, ain't happening for me. And they want something that's going to be, they're used to information at the touch of a button. And they want everything in small snippets. And that's what the wisdom keepers give to me to give to people. It's small snippets, little things. The 2 chairs, you can do it in a matter of minutes. It's everything is small snippets.
Well, they're definitely. Did they ever present themselves like where they came from, or a deeper sort of like origin story?
Yes. This was during what has now been termed the Schumann anomaly, Schumann anomaly. The
Yeah,
Schumann resonance is the
Schumann
just for
resonance.
people who don't know, it's the heartbeat of the earth, basically. And the Schumann resonance anomaly happened June, let's see, this is 2024, 2023, right around and including the equinox. Is it the equinox? No, it's the solstice. Anyway, the one that happens in June, it was right during that time. And all of a sudden, instead of having something that looks like a graph that kind of goes normal, it came up with the most beautiful geometric patterns. It was so wonderful. I didn't know it was happening until months after that happened. However, during that time, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm looking in my neighbor's yard, and she's got, geese and dogs, and that's not necessarily the neatest place in the world. There's this one little spot in there, and I'm just, something tells me, look at this spot. Okay, look at this spot. And these beings start parading in that spot in front of my eyes. And I'm like, wow. And the first one is the Atlantean. And she is gorgeous. And she is very, very tall, very slender, very elegant. And she is dressed in this sky dress on her head that has all these crystals in it. And I was just like, wow. And then she's followed by the person from Mu. And then this is a he. And he's this little tiny short thing. And he very much looks like a box. And I'm like, wow. And he looks very strong. And he's not fat at all. He's very fit. But he looks like a little box. And I'm like, wow. And he's got, because he's from Mu, which is, all of the Pacific Islands and all kinds of such, he looks like a Pacific Islander. Dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin. And, but he looks like this little box. And I'm like, that's really, really cool. And there's several more of them that came through. One of them is from Angkor Wat. One of them is from somewhere over in Egypt, Sumeria, something like this. One of them is from South America.
Egypt one. There's a woman that's got this whole Egypt set up in your field, which is really interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. They don't necessarily give me all of that, but I had a feeling that she probably was female. And then there's the one from the South American, and the other one that's really important is the one from Chaco, what we now call Chaco, down in the southern United States. It's I guess it was kind of an Anasazi stronghold, but it went through their connections went through South America, all of North America, and people would come there every year to have meetings. And they their message, that one's message, is very much related to technology and how it can be abused by power. And the Atlantean does that one too. They're a part of what all of them say is that we all need to have our power. We all need to know we have our power. We need to keep our power and not give it away to other structures that might be able to abuse it. Anyway,
Yeah, no,
they showed me themselves, and they gave me their message, and what their main message is. But the main reason they're here now is through this very, very difficult time, so that we can move on into this blissful picture that they give me of what can be beyond and what will be beyond. Take the same path they did.
yeah, I see that. I see that big time. So, wow. So you have this incredible collective of you know direct source
Mm-hmm.
information. There we are. Look at that.
You were gone for a bit, or I was gone for a bit. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. One of us was gone for a bit.
your wisdom keepers are messing with the juice here. Too much juice in the room.
I wondered about that one because they don't do this with anybody else. It's only when I'm with you.
Right. There's a
And it's
lot.
there's so much juice between what you do and what I do. I just was like, I wonder if we're overwhelming the circuits.
Oh, without question. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with bringing everyone together and having them experience this, because anyone that's familiar with my channel, my teachings, they can experience what we're experiencing right now between the two of us, and the amplitude of energy and the amount of juice is just off the off the charts. It's crazy. And so it's funny you mentioned the Schumann resonance. I'm, I get a lot of information from Latsu about the cycles of energy from all the planets, and he kind of talks that way, generally speaking, about things. He doesn't get into what he calls the sort of semantics of human expression. He more it's like if you understand the universe is you and you are the universe, why would I talk about the simplicity of a human's journey as opposed to understanding the actual rippling effects of you as the universe and what's going on as the universe. So that's how he kind of represents it. And the charge you and I got is like, it makes a lot of sense. But the Schumann resonance are really cool. Do you follow it personally? I'm actually getting a friend to the channel on that. She goes deep on the Schumann resonance. And I know that the only place that you can get that stuff right now is out of Russia. And I don't read Russian, so I just rely on Latsu, translating it for me, on a day by day basis. Do you follow it at all?
I follow it a little bit, but most of the time I don't see too much. If I feel particularly like something's happening in the energy field, I'll check it out and I'll see where it's at. Um,
Yeah.
but um, I don't follow it a lot. I did when I heard about it, and I thought, oh wow, I should check that out. And I noticed that it happened to coincide. There is no coincidence, but it happened to coincide with exactly when my wisdom keepers were coming to me the strongest. And I'm like, okay, so they can say all over the place, we have no research to say what it was, and you can't say that it was necessarily. I know what it did for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this type of mastery that the audience is experiencing, the transmission and the amplitude of energy between Lee and I, that's high opening amplitude of just pure source consciousness, Tao, Buddha, God, oneness, universe. I mean, it's all happening. That charge that we're experiencing right now, that is real. And it's that's what we're here for. And this type of like visceral kinesthetic response is the kind of stuff that is a good validator for the person's experience, opposed to just sort of like looking and seeking information. I feel like there's a fundamental difference between consuming all this stuff. You want to read books after books after books. Your relationship with Ram Dass was visceral. It was tangible. It was oneness. And then you were able to experience his presence as he, transmuted into this energetic form that was palpable, that can be seen with your very eyes, as if you were looking at him standing right before you. It's like that incredible connection. And that doesn't come from reading books, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to tell you. It's like it's experiencing what it is that you're going to embrace. And, that's just so powerful. What are your thoughts on that? See, Lee and I are blowing up this computer with the amount of juice going. Are you there? You there?
I'm here now. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. And I agree with you. I used to read a lot of books, and like I said, I poured through absolutely everything online about all the videos of Ram Dass and such. I don't read books anymore. In fact, I've given all my books away so that somebody else who might need them, or somebody else who could benefit from them, can have them, because I don't need them anymore. I have something that is, okay, anybody in their mind, and anybody can question it if they want to. I don't. I know how real it is. And I have known how real it is. Now that I look at it and look back at this whole timeline, the entire thing was real. Every bit of it was more real than what I have in this experience. Why would I not? Why would I question that? Why would I not believe that that's actually true?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing to do it.
Energy that keeps blowing up the computer.
I think it does. It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, before our computers explode, I'm going to ask you a few little questions before we finish up here today. First and foremost, I'm going to ask you, what is your definition of consciousness?
Okay. My definition of consciousness is um, it is the true being of who we are beyond all the belief systems, or BS, and all of the limiting belief systems, which is LBS, that have been put on us. And LBS, for those who don't understand, is the American definition, or the term, uh, the marking for pounds, which is weight. And so consciousness is everything that we can perceive beyond BS and LBS. And that is our true nature.
I love that. I love that simplicity. And I will say that I want you to share with the audience. I'm going to put all your social media and everything under this podcast, and I want you to share with the audience what you're offering to them today, because I want them to check you out. I want them to go to your social. I want them to gravitate to your teachings with the wisdom keepers. You just have a profound message, and you're very insightful, and I'm really grateful for you and the wisdom keepers for sharing this experience, this visceral experience with us today.
So what I offer, and this all comes through my website, which is handletheshift.com. And I very much am interested in the business model of the future. So everything on my website can be accessed for anybody anywhere in the world. Almost everything is donation based. So you pay what you can, and what if you can't pay, I don't think it's fair for anybody to not be able to get guidance based on that. So everything I have has a way of being donation based. There is a link to some of my my favorite tools, so that if somebody is in a spot and they need something right now, they can go there and they can find these tools for free or for donation based. And so it's all there, and I can work with you one on one. I can try and figure out, we can figure out together what's going on with you, where you can go. You will be making all the choices, not me. But I can maybe guide you so that you can figure out, which way is up if you need to. And I would like to work more with groups, but that hasn't happened effectively yet. So you can see what I do, who I am there. There's also my YouTube channel, which is called Human Conversations. And if you want to look it up, you're going to have to look up Human Conversations and put in my name, Lei Mohr, Leimohr, and it will come up, and you can see many of these conversations that I have had with a very dear friend of mine that revolves around all of us evolving into oneness and moving into this blissful life that we have coming.
Oh, I'm really excited. I want the audience to check it out. I want to, my goodness, finish up by saying thank you for sharing your time with us today. Thank the wisdom keepers for sharing their amplitude and frequency and energy, jacking up my internet today. And they're just a lot of juice. And I want to thank the universe for bringing us together and creating this incredible friendship. And then I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And in closing, I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Ching, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.